Hi, and welcome to the webinar number 5. Here we're going to cover some administrator setups related to statement or collection. So this is the second part of the session 5, which covers patient collections. So the agenda, we start with the welcome, the administrator setups, and we have time for questions. So the items we're going to cover in the administrator part, where and how to set up pre-collection letters, have the pay to address show up on the statement. By default, it's always the practice address that prints on the statement, but if you want the pay to address to print, this is or to have it on the statement, how you could change the setup to have that done. Also, how you can have a custom message show on the PDF statement. So let's begin the training. So first we're going to look at how you can add pre-collection letters. You can add multiple pre-collection letters. And I'm just going to go back to the pre-collection screen so we can look at the letter drop down. So I'm going to go back and open the C4 Generate Patient Pre-Collections letter. And so when this list is displayed, you can see there is a pre-collection letters drop down. You can have multiple pre-collection letter templates loaded into the system, and you can have them show up on this drop down. So let's look at how you can add this pre-collection letters. So to add pre-collection letter, you go under Advanced Setup and go to Letter Master. Any letters that are added into the system get added from the Letter Master screen. Here we're going to look for pre-collection letter in the name. So from the drop down, you can see there were two pre-collections letter, pre-collection and pre-collection 1. Those were on the drop down. So these are the two pre-collection letters. So if you click on the letter name, it kind of shows you the letter. You can see these are the various tags, the legal entity or the practice name, the address. So these are the different tags, and you get a list of tags that you can select from this tag drop down. Now, when you're adding any pre-collection letter, always note the group code has to be pre-collection, as exactly as you see here. If this group code is not entered, it would not, this pre-collection letter or the letter that you add will not show up on the drop-down. Now you have all these different formatting options that you can use, just like as you would have it in a Word formatting or Word processing software. You have all these different formatting options that is available for you. Now the tags can be used, or you can also have fixed characters entered here instead of tags. If you have the tags, whatever is the tag that is being used for, or whatever is the tag, for example, the legal entity, if there are multiple legal entities, whichever legal entity has been used, that legal entity prints up on the top. Similarly, you can have the tags for a patient or guarantor. So you've got these different tags that you can have: total due for the patient, and you can customize the letter. So typically you would have a couple of standard pre-collection letters that will be loaded in the system when the database is set up for you, but you can also customize the letter, change the letter, or add new letters. Now if you want to add a new letter, there is a plus button on the top right hand side. You can hit that to add a new letter. You can start with a blank letter. You can give a name for the letter, and you can enter all the letter details and hit save. to have the letter saved. So just make sure when you're adding the letter, the group code should be pre-collection. So that's the place that you can add letters. So any letters that you want to add is added from the letter master. Next, we're going to look at how you can change the address that gets printed on this statement. So typically it is the practice address that prints by default, but if you want the pay to address to be printed on the patient statement header, you can change that from the advanced setup billing options. So in the billing option screen, there is a show payable address for patient statement. So if you select that as yes, it is actually going to populate the pay to address, whichever you have set up on the primary legal entity, the pay to address in there, that's what's going to populate on the statement. Now if you set it as no, it's going to use the default address, which is going to be the practice address. The next item we're going to look at is how you can have some custom message appear on this PDF statement. So if you go under the setup and open the practice screen, under the practice screen there's a patient communication info. Any text that you type on this patient communication info box will appear in the remit to section of the patient statement. On the remit to, there is remit to information right below the PDF state, right below the balances show up. You would see that information populate on the PDF. So if you need any custom message, any specific instruction that you need to have show up on the statement, you can enter that specific instruction into this box and save it. So this is a custom message, which means that it'll appear on every statement that gets every PDF statement that you generate. However, if you just want like a dunning message, or message that just appears for that one-time statement generation, then you can use the dunning message box in the statement generation screen itself. So this that's the difference between the two boxes. The one here is going to print always on the statement as long as you have the box filled in. The other is a one-time, and you just enter it into the box, and at the time of generation, that is, you enter it into the box in the message box there, and it just generates for that selected list of statements that you are printing at that time. Now there's some additional information I want to give you about the statements, and that's related to the statements set up through our clearinghouse. So we have in the system integrated with our clearinghouse the statements submission. And so when you are in the generate statement screen, you would notice there is a send to TriZetto, which is our clearinghouse partner, and this this file will be submitted to the clearinghouse, which will then process it and print and mail it on your behalf. Now this is a separate setup. If you need the this option to be activated and this to be added, you would have to send a request to the onboarding CSC or to the enrollment team. So this will have to be done separately as a separate request. You can send them an email or just request your onboarding CSC to have that activated for you. Once the setup is complete, you would be informed, and you will then have to send a sample file, or when the setup is initiated, you would have to send a sample file. So you'll need to have at least a few patients in there with the build patient responsibility. So you can generate a sample file, and that sample file has to be submitted to TriZetto, the clearinghouse, who will then set it up and then send you a sample statement back, which you can either approve or require. If any changes are required, you can um, inform of the changes to the enrollment team, and they will make those necessary changes, coordinate with the clearinghouse to make those changes. And then once the sample gets approved, it gets turned on. So there is always 3 to 10 working days that may be needed for the statement setup. So, and also, as I mentioned, that's going to be a separate setup. So always you may have to just request that separately, because that's not automatically turned on for our customers. Right, so that was all about the sending of the statements, or setting up some statements, administrators setups that you could do for statements or collections. So that's all in this part of the webinar. If there are any questions, please do type them into your questions section. Please type your questions into the webinar control panel.